Hello there. I'm Bornmedicated, and welcome to our little corner of YouTube. I have schizoaffective disorder, and doing videos about books I like helps me feel social and part of a little community. And honestly, people like me aren't meant for Facebook. I've been doing videos on Doom Patrol and Mr. Nobody because they really stood out for me. Even with all the platforms out there and with all the different shows on right now, no one can really compare to Doom Patrol. They freaking killed it. The book and show are pretty different, and I just wanted to tell you what I think is going on. So in the show, we left off the DPs. Okay, that's not going to work. The Doom Patrol go on to take on the fart skywriting donkey, while the ever-expanding hole starts to suck up the town and people around it. Then we meet here the show-only character of Ezekiel the Cockroach. Ezekiel turned very religious and became a firm believer after he heard that God was going to eventually wipe humans off the earth because he thinks him and the other vermin will rule the earth after Armageddon. He gets all excited thinking this is finally it, and promptly gets sucked into the hole. We cut to Nobody and the Chief, again with the Chief asking Nobody who he's talking to, since Nobody keeps narrating. Nobody says Grant Morrison fans, Reddit trolls with DC subscriptions, and the 3 fans that stuck around after the donkey fart. Then Chief says something I found weird. You think you control this story, don't you? Okay, what? Story? Okay, let's break this down a bit. First, Nobody mentions Grant Morrison fans. Grant Morrison is one of the most famous comic writers out there. Long story short, some fifth-dimensional alien beings showed him how life was created and how time and the universe is perceived by them. So Grant writes his work like we are the fifth-dimensional beings to comic books, like how we read their thoughts and also perceive their time and timeline at once because we can flip the pages back and forth. So Nobody must see this TV show kind of the same way. But does the Chief? And if they both know their characters and that they came from comic books on the TV screen, how the heck could this affect the plot in later seasons? Well, I don't want to spoil anything too soon, so I'll try to throw what I can out there. Nobody says he doesn't see anything that says he's not in control of the story, and Chief basically rolls his eyes at him. Again, what? Then Nobody snaps and sucks the bus with him and the Chief down the hole. Then Jane jumps in after the Chief right before it closes up with the town and everyone in it. Then we cut to 5 years ago in Star Labs in beautiful Detroit, Michigan. Now, they get to build 7 characters in the 15 episodes of an hour apiece, so they have forever for character development. Me, not so much. So here's Cyborg and his dad. And Cyborg loves Niles. Larry tries to get a bus to anywhere out of town, but the negative spirit won't let him dip. Cliff chases the donkey, but Cyborg heard about Cloverton on the news and wants to help out. Now, Cyborg is a really great kid with the best intentions, and he's showing his skills in the 3-run-3, but Cyborg also said something of mention to Chief back at Star Labs. He said that he should have a good shot at the Justice League in 5 years. And here we are 5 years later, and he says he doesn't even know Batman. So maybe he thinks by helping the Chief in this town, it would be good on his resume. Anyways, this is never said out loud, so we'll see. So they're arguing about how the donkey fits into all this when it pukes out Jane. Back to Doom Manor. That's not what it's technically called. And Jane just keeps repeating, dead in his arms. This reminds me a little of the book, because one of Jane's persons keeps repeating blood of the lamb and says it's a warning. In the show, Jane is giving a warning along with a painting, but Cyborg isn't in the books. It's mainly just Jane, Cliff, and Larry. I said the show has 15 episodes to work this story out, but the books do a great job also. Instead of Rita, there's Ray, but she's in a coma most of the time, and we won't get to her. They totally borrow some things from the books, like Jane in the Underground. I might do videos on those later. But the show comes up with great stories of their own too, like the whole deal with the cult of the Recreator. But back in the books, right after Nobody has chosen his team, he names it the Brotherhood of DaDa, referencing an art movement created to rebel against World War I. Art that really made no sense. Right after Nobody assembles DaDa, he reads them from Thomas de Quincey. Now, de Quincey is kind of awesome. De Quincey was the first guy to write about recreational drug use in his book Confessions of an English Opium Eater, a fascination that definitely continues to our day. Now, in Tom's writing, he speaks of a painting that possesses the power to physically devour you. Well, Tom's probably talking about the addictive nature of the opium flower, but Mr. Nobody, on the other hand, is taking it literally. Now, I have to step here and say that addiction is one of the toughest things out there right now. I honestly got addicted to pills there for a while, and it had me to where I couldn't even wake up in the morning and have any life whatsoever without a pill. And I couldn't dream of what it would be like in the 1800s to have an addiction you didn't understand. When I was pill sick, it felt like a demon had possessed me and was decaying me from the inside. I couldn't imagine the things you would think that were happening to you in the 1800s. And this guy tried to write it all down. So fucking good for him. He was like the first Hunter Thompson. Well, here in Doom Patrol land, the Ode to Dope Sickness painting is an actual thing that someone owns. And he just tells the Brotherhood that they're going to steal it. Now, Grant Morrison really does his homework on weirdness for the origin of this painting, so I'm going to explain this the best I can, so please bear with me. Quincey writes about a painting by artist Giovanni Battista Perezzani, one of the first influences of surrealism. See, in Quincey's book, Confessions of an Opium Eater, he actually does have a conversation about Giovanni's art, but Morrison here is just messing with reality a bit and making this all literal. Besides De Quincey, Oscar Wilde also mentioned the painting in an unpublished story, Confessions of Sebastien Malmuth. Well, Sebastien Malmuth was Oscar Wilde's pen name while he was in exile for being gay. See, maids testified in court that there were wet spots on the sheets after young men had left Wilde's hotel room. I can't even fathom that. Jesus Christ, the world is fucked up. But Wilde never wrote any confessions, so all that's made up. Then Nobody continues saying the first painting was destroyed in 1814, right before the defeat of Napoleon. So the timeline is even messed up here. It's just all made up. Then he says that a second painting was constructed by a Max Borengeist, an Icelandic artist with a little cult following known for his esoteric interests. The story goes he locked himself in his room with shamanic techniques that date back hundreds of years, and he emerged several days with a hungry painting. But then the painting sent him to asylum for the rest of his life. Well, this part is also totally made up. The fact it's actually one of those SCP Foundation monsters. Yes, the painting is psychedelically moves around and eats people, and it's on the SPC Foundation website to help other horror writers brainstorm. All right, so next, nobody says English writer tried to produce a similar painting using automatic drawing. Now, the normal form of automatic drawing is to just draw randomly around the canvas without any subconscious or rational thinking and let the brush do the work. Another form is to get into a meditative state and let spirit do the drawing. Grant could mean either here, but probably the latter. And then finally, he says in 1923, it just ended up in some asshole's collection where it was seized by the Nazis, and now it's owned by another scientist of the strange and kept high in the French Alps. So Quiz, the Fog, and the rest of the Brotherhood get the painting pretty easy. They just say they're going to trash the place if the guy doesn't give it up. Well, next we see Dada is at the Eiffel Tower. And I guess nobody is just yelling because I don't see any microphones or anything. And he's introducing themselves and explaining Dada a bit. Excuse me. That Dada is a state of mind. Dada applies itself to everything yet is nothing. Dada is useless like everything in life and has no pretensions just like life should have, and to present this absurd ritual for your entertainment. Kind of like my videos. And soon their lives will be forever changed, folding them into the empire of senseless. Then he names some people he's making an offering to. Duchamp, Tazar, and Brenton. Okay, so this is a spell. First, we hear nobody call it a ritual, and then he names some names he's going to make an offering to. Mix that with Grant Morrison as a damn magician, and we have a fucking spell. So let's break it down a little. These three guys are real. Duchamp is Marcel Duchamp, a French-American artist who helped start the Dada conceptual artist movement. Conceptual art I talk about in my Alan Moore H.P. Lovecraft videos. It's where the idea of your art is bigger than the actual art itself. Side note, Grant Morrison and Alan Moore hate each other, but they're so similar you'd think they'd get along. Anyways, next nobody mentions Tazar. So that's Tristan Tazar, another Dada artist who dealt in symbolism. One of the presidents of Dada, and makes the first footsteps in the evolution of surrealism, and even made some movies in the 20s and shit. Finally, Brenton is Andre Breton, another Frenchie that helped transform Dada into surrealism. Surrealism, by the way, is a movement started in the 1920s. Best known for like visually radical or illogical scenes, like Dali in painting and Brenton in writing. Surrealist writing is like my wife with the hair of a wood fire, with the thought of heat lightning, with the waist of an otter and the teeth of a tiger. Cool, huh? And finally, who nobody calls the nihilist martyr, St. Arthur Caravan. And surprise, he was no saint. He was some Swiss boxer. Okay, he was also an artist. His father's sister, so his auntie, was married to Oscar Wilde. And we just learned he was gay, so I'm sure that marriage was great. Anyways, Caravan. Caravan was an interesting guy. He avoided the draft by traveling America and Europe with fake passports, claiming he wasn't born anywhere and he's a citizen to over 200 countries. He made fun of another artist's self-portrait so hard that her boyfriend shot him. I think he kind of invented performance art, where he would go downtown and mix his art with singing and boxing skills. Nobody calls him a martyr, but the fact is Arthur died on vacation when his boat sank. I suppose he's called a martyr because he was settling down and got married and was sick with dysentery all the time from his traveling, and he wanted to come back to America, but he couldn't because he was a draft dodger. So there we have it. Honestly, I thought these guys would turn out to be a bunch of witches, but they turned out to be a bunch of artists. Nobody introduces everyone to the painting that ate Paris. Well, a cop comes up and is like, "Move along, nothing to see here," and is turned into a chicken. Then another cop comes up, looks like he's in charge, and he says, "None of this is funny," and is promptly turned into a toilet. Then everyone starts realizing what they're seeing and freak out. Nobody reads a Dada poem like the one I explained earlier. But what Grant Morrison does is he has an auto word generator on his computer, and he just lets the computer write the next word that comes to it. So it's no secret ritual or chaos spell or lost knowledge of the ancients. It's just his autocorrecting doing the job. When the poem is finished, a bright flash, not unlike Mr. Nobody's origin light, and Paris, along with the Brotherhood, are sucked into the painting, with nobody very happy that it worked. Now, back in the show, there's a lot of character development with Jane, because she has so many personalities, and they need to talk to the one that was inside the donkey. They finally just shove Rita down the donkey's throat, and then Rita gets sucked in along with Cyborg and Larry. Then, like cats, they all land softly on their feet. Now I'm guessing this is all the white space, and the entire town is trapped in here, kind of parallel to the books and how nobody is trapped Paris in the painting. Well, this is a good place to stop. We covered some good ground here, and I learned a lot about the first rebellious hippies. I touched on addiction. And if you or someone you know is struggling, I want to say that Suboxone doctors are out there, and they aren't like the terrible stories you would get from the old methadone clinics. Suboxone is a wonderful alternative to the bullshit that they're selling there out there today, and you can get a good doctor that will help you through everything. I'm not talking about NA or anything like that. I'm talking about modern medicine that helps with addiction. Do the research on how many alcoholics have stopped drinking using marijuana edibles, or the success rate of medical-assisted treatment versus NA or NA meetings. What I'm saying is there's hope out there, and you're a beautiful person worth saving. My buddy Moth is still steady dropping knowledge and producing some of the best stuff on YouTube. So if you get bored, go over there and peep his stuff. My next video will be up real soon. I'm Bornmedicated. Please like and subscribe.